One of the biggest people I've interviewed in the EU community so far. This one was recorded 3 weeks before our EU LAN event in April 2023. We obviously speak about the LAN because this person is heavily involved with organising that event. This person's been here since day one and is fully planning to be here on the last day as also. Witnessing the whole evolution of the game, this person grew up in the 90s, inspired by the hype around VR at that time, and then got to see it materialize in the 2010s over time with the original Kickstarter of the Oculus DK1, and then the evolution of that device, and then the introduction of EchoVR around 2017. They've been, as I say, involved in the game the whole time the game's been around. They've been an active member of the community, of the player base, playing competitively as well. This really is a Mr. EchoVR. This person has had amazing moments with involved the community, as well as some vulnerable moments, which they share in this interview. A very well-rounded interview. We talk about so much stuff. It's a real deep dive into someone that's been so into this game and this community and everything that this podcast is. This is like for me, this is like the perfect guest for the format and everything that we're doing here. This is going to be down as one of the best interviews. Looking back, I'm hoping to get like 100 episodes, potentially way more out of this series, but looking back, this is going to be like one of the best ones. Like, this is an all-time episode here. This is Gobshite McGobshite. Let's get to it. Gobshite McGobshite is the full title.
The full title, that's me.
I'm going to get that on the thumbnail for the video, so it's going to fill up the whole width.
Yeah, my parents gave me the name.
Mr. and Mrs. McGobshite.
Yeah, they weren't the most inventive of parents, but they really resonated with the Gobshite.
You're no, let's get into it. Let's roll with it. You grew up in Dorset?
Yeah, man. Yep, by the beach down in Bournemouth.
Nice. Did you go to uni down there as well? Because I went to uni down there. That's how I know Bournemouth.
I left Bournemouth and went to Southampton, just down the road for uni.
Right.
So, yeah.
And back then, when you went to uni in Southampton, was the 1865? Was that still there?
Funny enough, the 1865 was not as it is now. Like, it was a rubber factory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the place where we're holding the LAN, it was a rubber factory. But I used to run a pub around the corner from the 1865. So whilst I was studying, like, I got a part-time job in this pub, and then the landlady didn't really want to stay around. She got paid more money to go manage other pubs. So I basically, when I was like 21, just got handed this pub in Southampton. So
what, to own it or to manage it?
Well,
to run it?
I was like managing it, basically, just running it.
As a 21-year-old?
Didn't really do a huge amount of studying, to be honest. Lots of lock-ins and not much studying. Just
what
about
did
got
you
my
study?
degree. Pop music and record production. So
Amazing.
Recording bands and that sort of side of things.
And did the career ever go like that rock and roll lifestyle? Did you ever go on tour?
I've been, yeah. I basically I was putting on gigs and stuff. As soon as I left school. When I was like 17, we were running our first nights in like a bar that we weren't supposed to be doing.
I've just realised we are in neutral outfits. Can we do it one more time? Okay, we just took a little break there. We're back. Now we're in our beautiful new outfits. Very green. I love it.
Yeah, these are the brightest colours. The whole time they did the Echo Pass, I was waiting for them to come out with something a bit brighter, and they never did. So.
And this is how you dress on tour, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do wear a lot of orange. Yeah.
And you're still like before COVID. Were you still touring? Like, what was your day-to-day like?
I never did like touring, but I just did promoting and organising gigs and festivals. So I kind of started doing it out of school, and then carried on like through college, uni, came back, and then started running a little touring venue. And the 1865, where we're going to go and do the LAN in a couple of weeks, is a venue I used to help out with programming. Used to help them get some bands in there. So yeah, I kind of just have always been organizing stuff, really. It's kind of yeah.
And you've, yeah, was my hand going a bit nuts there. Were you managing events other than at these specific venues in Southampton? Did you do anything else
Yeah.
across the country?
Well, mostly in Bournemouth. I've pretty much put on shows in every venue in Bournemouth, like big and small, up
Yeah.
to like 3,000 cap. At the bigger scale, down to like 60 people on the smaller. But yeah, mostly like Bournemouth, a little bit in Southampton, and then I ran a music festival, and then helped people. We used to do like volunteer management as well. You know, recruit like loads of people that want to go to festivals for free. And then we
Yeah.
go do like 8 festivals in the summer, and just go to one after the other, and just run the little teams with the high-vis jackets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun, enjoyable.
You've been doing it for a while then,
Yeah.
since you were 21.
Well, since I was like 17, really, like literally just ran my first gig at 17, and then just carried on organizing stuff. There's something really special about like bringing people together to do something.
Right.
It's kind of the thing I enjoy the most, is like meeting lots of different people, getting them to meet each other. You never know what cool stuff comes off the back of that, like we did a little festival, and then some of the people that met there went on to do insanely like cool art projects, and some people even got married off the back of like meeting in these places, and it's just nice to be a little part of people's big stories.
So would you organize, did your like events experience, did that go beyond music events? Or is this just like a variety of music events? It's not just festivals, it's not just like pub lock-ins.
Mostly like mostly concerts and festivals, really. But then a lot of the skills you use for that kind of, cross over into other areas, which is, you know, I guess quite normal. You learn, really you're just kind of pulling together a project, and you're saying these people need to do this, and you need this, and you need this in place. And whether you're running a concert or a conference, or what be it, a lot of the skills and a lot of the things you need to do are really similar. Like I work
Yeah.
for a company now called Festival Pro, and we just help run the back end systems for like big festivals all over the world. So I just sit on calls with people that are running festivals and talk them through their processes. And we kind of try and work out, just the best way to make things happen.
So it's definitely not an easy feat to set up a LAN, to set up an event for the community, but it sounds like you're just in the right place to do it. It's like, it's your day job anyway.
Yeah, to me, these kind of things, it never felt like it was an overly scary task to take on. It's kind of easier to organize some people playing games than it is a bunch of people getting, pretty intoxicated in the field. I'm very unlikely to have to deal with an air ambulance and the police at a LAN event. And that's the
Well, you
kind of
never know.
things that you do have to deal with, at festivals.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of ways, it's a lot less stressful.
So what does go into it though? So right now we've got the LAN coming up in 3 weeks. So not next weekend, weekend after that. We're all going to be in Southampton. 150 people, I'm guessing, is the
Yeah,
estimate. How many
yeah.
people we're getting from all across Europe. You're, if not doing it by yourself, you're at least leading it. You're managing the coming together of all these people and making sure everyone has a good time over 2 days, 2.5 days maybe. There's extended events going on. So where do you start? How do you start managing that? And when did you start it?
I started this one pretty much the week before the last LAN, like a couple of
Right.
weeks before the last one. Is kind of when I started planning this one, because the year goes like way quick than you would expect. The first thing is really just trying to work out your budgets. I was trying to guess how many people will come. The problem is we haven't got any sponsors and funding in this game, right? As we all know,
Did
people
you
have
did you
tried.
nearly have that?
I had an investor who was really keen on throwing some money behind boosting this up in future years. But
Yeah.
obviously, come August, that's that's not going to be possible, at least for this game. I've spoken to him since, and he's still interested because the VR esports space has just been bubbling under the surface, and there are people out there who have been watching it who think that this is a worthy thing to put their money behind. Unfortunately, Echo is going to maybe just miss that boat.
Do you, when you say miss that boat, do you think it's a given? Do you think it's coming anytime soon, or is it just like at some point?
I think it's a given it's going to come at some point, and I think a lot of other people understand that as well. It's just going to be a case of what's going to be the catalyst to really kickstart that off. And Echo was getting close to having the numbers to pull things off. The only reason I could do a LAN with Echo Arena is because despite the rumors that are out there, we have got a sizable community. And none of the other games I looked at had anywhere close to the kind of player base that Echo Arena has. And when you're going to budget an event with no major sponsors, you have to make that self-fund in some way. And, whatever number that comes out at is going to limit all of your other decisions, what venue you can afford, how much staffing, what level of production. All of that stuff is dictated by making an educated guess around how many people are going to be involved and, what you can reasonably charge as a ticket price.
And we know that NEPA was an event that was happening in St. Louis, or it was going to happen. They were going to have a charity LAN, and then they pulled the plug on it. There's other reasons because the financial commitments outside of just this event. So it's a bit easier for you because it's just one event that you're managing. Have you still managed to hopefully make it break even? Or has it been made way harder now?
As of like a week or so ago, I broke even on the event. So
nice.
Yeah. Again, I've made sure that I've done this before with other things, and it's very easy to get kind of sidetracked and spend loads of money that you don't have on things that you don't possibly need. So when I'm putting together these LAN events, I always had a set budget that it was going to work within, because you don't want to kind of overcommit and then you have to do what those guys did and cancel on people who have made travel plans. And it's a big responsibility doing an event like this, because you've got people who have got a lot of hopes and expectations based upon what you put together. And I've been involved in a few events that have had to pull the plug, and it's a horrible feeling, and not one that I ever want to be in a position of having to do myself. So yeah, I'm always like super careful about that.
Okay, let's change the subject a little bit. We're going to go back to 2017.
Good times.
In 2017, were
Great
you?
Times.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, I don't actually know when it was. When did you first come across virtual reality?
I mean, I first came across VR in
Was it way earlier?
probably like 2012, 13.
Oh, nice. So Kickstarter?
When Parmalucky was putting the Kickstarter out for DK1. And I didn't have like the opportunity to try one. I was just like one of those 90s kids that was promised VR when I was like 12 years old.
And what was this? Is
never
this
fucking
Nintendo?
happened.
Nintendo VR?
Just every magazine you used to go through as a kid, it was like virtual reality is coming, and it just never ever did. So as soon as I saw this thing, I was like, I need to try it, right?
Yeah.
And my missus and my mates just got a little bit annoyed with me constantly banging on about it. Then this dude did an open day at a university, Bournemouth Uni, and I could see that I could sign up, and I went along, and he was demoing the DK1, and I got to try the Rift coaster and Tuscany.
Yep, the house.
The house. And I remember walking around that house just being like, this is insane. And I started saving that day because events. You don't make very much money working in the kind of jobs that I've been working in. And I just started saving then, really, so that I could afford a PC and a CV1 when eventually it came out, which was, 2016, I think.
So your first experience was the DK1.
Yeah.
And DK1, was that 6 degrees of freedom? You know what I mean by that, right? Were you
Yeah,
able
yeah,
to like
yeah.
move your head left and right?
You could move
Not
your
just down.
head. You couldn't like do this and it
You
track.
could rotate, but you couldn't move. You couldn't
Yeah,
pan.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Because
It was
it's rare for me to be able to talk to people about this. Because most people, their first experience of VR is like a Quest 2, which is like insane compared to the DK1.
well, the thing is that that happened, and in the middle was DK2, and that's when I really started like going on the Reddit every day, reading all this stuff on the Oculus
Yeah, yeah.
forums and all the rest of it. And a little computer shop down the road had some um, had some DK2s in the window. I popped in and had a chat with a guy, and he was just a VR enthusiast. He had two of them, and he had a chair set with like Elite Dangerous. And then
Yeah.
I used to like just pop in there like once a month and drag just friends I wanted to say, look at how cool VR is, and drag them into this little computer shop. And I promised him I was going to buy my first VR rig from there, and I never did because they were like twice the price of everywhere else. But we did go in there for like months, once a week or something. Just to be like, hey, this technology is so cool, right? And now look at us, wireless headset, you
So
know.
when did you get your first headset yourself then? You said you saved up for a rig. Was this DK2 or was this CV1?
That CV1 launched just those
Nice.
really expensive packages that came with a Xbox
With the Xbox
controller.
control? Yep.
Yeah, yep.
Nice. And what games were you playing back then? Were you playing Lone Echo or was that still a bit further down the road?
No, I don't think Lone Echo was out then. I didn't actually play Lone Echo till quite a way into having played Echo Arena, to be honest. But yeah, what was I playing back then? Like, did
Was it like Robo Recall,
Darknet?
Unspoken?
I don't think, because it was before touch controllers. And there was like
Oh yeah.
Lucky's Tale.
Yeah.
I remember that
This
being
is
quite
real like
cool.
launch day titles.
Yeah, yeah, it was like all those sort of things.
Did you ever play a game called Cronus? Does that
Kronos,
ring a
yeah,
bell?
rings a bell. Can't remember much about it, but I remember I just play anything really. Then I was just like, this stuff's amazing. There was a game called Darknet or something, some hacking game. You had all these balls around you, and you had to like send people off to. It was a bit like playing Risk, I guess, but formed around being in the Matrix.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool. But there was just like it never felt as good as it could be until these
Yeah.
touch controllers came out, and
Yeah.
then that just changed like everything.
Yeah, I remember it. I remember getting the controllers for the first time and it came in a separate box.
Yeah,
That was quite an
yeah, yeah.
experience opening that box up. Comes with an extra sensor.
And then you load up that first contact demo,
Yep.
and it was like, take this tape, put it in the robot, push down. Oh my god! Like, yeah, it was super cool. And then at that point, I was just like everyone I could possibly show, like come around my house, put on my headset. We had some
Yeah.
crazy parties where people were just like not in a fit state to be wearing headsets, and put one guy on super hot,
Yeah, yeah.
and he thought these guys were actually like coming at him. He was like tripping a little bit, and he's taken some mushrooms. I was like, this is a great opportunity. You've got to put the headset on it. And then he just started bolting it and pretty much just ran into my wall, trying to run away from these imaginary people with guns. But he just took off this headset afterwards, and just the look on his face was just like otherworldly. He was just like,
Yeah.
this is actually insane. I don't think there's been a person I've showed it to who didn't love it, apart from my wife, who's absolutely sick of it.
Did
But
did you ever get her playing, or is she just kind of like
no,
tolerated
no,
it?
just
Like, oh, that's nice.
she's happy I've got the hobby.
Yeah.
I do what I do, but she's she was never never into it. But weirdly, a lot of people I did get to buy headsets and convince them, they played it for a while and didn't really ever stick with it. You know, a lot of people have kind of brought their headsets and not found that longevity. And I can't say that I would have found that same longevity without this game. Really, I think Echo Arena is the biggest like retention thing for me.
Why?
All of this, um, it's just like some blocks, right? Some blocks and an empty
Yeah.
arena. But this, in all the thousands of games I've played, no two games have ever been the same.
In all the thousands of games you've played in VR, I'm assuming, no two games have been the same.
No, of all the thousands of Echo Arena matches and
Oh, got
games
it.
that I've played,
Yeah.
no two matches have ever been the same. It's the same arena, you know, it's the same
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
We just got a disc. No two games have ever been the same. There's that constant level up. You know, you can feel yourself constant, especially in the early days. Like people were learning this game. No one
Yeah.
no one had a clue how to play it. And seeing all that happen in real time was super exciting. And being around that, and I would say that is the reason it's retained me, because I've just been here for so long that it feels like part of me. But then I see players who have only been playing for 6 months, 8 months, a year, and they feel exactly the same about it, you know, and have got that same level of connection to this space and this sport that, you know, I don't see any other VR game really doing.
And what was okay? So how did you get into Echo specifically?
I can't remember where I saw the thing about the beta. Still to this day, I can't remember where, but somewhere I saw
Yeah.
Echo Arena beta, and then joined the Discord for it. And that was the first time I'd ever installed Discord.
Yeah.
First time I've got like
Same for Echo.
thousands of servers now, and I'd never even used the thing. I was like, well, you know, let's get into this. Let's try something else. I was trying all the new stuff at the time, right? Because it's a new toy. You've got your hands in VR. Let's see what we can do. And almost immediately turning up in those first few games, that's absolutely hooked, really.
Were you playing any other social titles at the time as well?
At the time, I don't think so. Not massively. I was like social titles as in chatting. Like there was this VR chat thing. But it wasn't VR chat. It was kind of a really
Alt space?
there was alt space. I remember going to like some comedy things in there, and then like they did this like big news thing as well when the Donald Trump election was on.
Oh, okay.
Donald Trump, Hillary. I was in there for the for the election, and I watched it all play out in there. All these people getting really pissed off, and like really full lobbies getting really quiet, and then just loads of angry Trump people shouting at the end. And I was like, this is so strange. This is a weird way to experience a world event. But yeah, no other social games as such, just social experiences. But the thing is, there was no queue, right, back then. There was no, like, it was just you press the button and you got in. There was no matchmaking as such, skill-based matchmaking. It was just, you press the button and get in against one of the maybe 100 other people that were playing in the beta. So you got to know all these people really well,
Right.
and all the people were really lovely, you know.
Right.
And I think that made a huge difference. I played like online multiplayer games on like PC for years, but most of the people in online multiplayers are arseholes, right?
But do you think it's because of the accessibility back then? Back then, the prerequisite to get in was you have a beefy computer for the time.
Yeah, you had to have a beefy
And you have a
computer. You had
headset.
to spend like a lot of money on all of this
Yeah.
stuff, which limited like the average age range. We were probably like middle age range
Yeah.
of people when it came out, and now we're definitely some of the older people in VR. And every time a new headset came out, you know, the age
Yeah.
bracket dropped, and as the age bracket drops, inevitably you're going to get more hyperactive, shouty people, and less kind of interesting conversation. A lot of the people I met in the early days, they were all doing something interesting. They're all like developers or involved in some kind of interesting kind of projects or jobs that they would tell you about. And
Yeah, they
you
were
never,
true enthusiasts, right? They were VR enthusiasts rather than casual players.
yeah. You just never knew who you were going to bump into then as well. It was really quite exciting to come in and then you just be playing with the devs one day, and then they just kind of be talking about, what do you think if we did this? Or, and you felt like you had some kind of input into it all as well in those early times.
Did you experience that at all? Was there any ever time where you got talking to one of the rad team and then like something that you suggested or you're involved with actually got implemented the next month?
The next month, implemented by
Well, I don't
Rad.
know. I don't know what next month. But back then,
Even back then, it didn't. Nothing implemented that quickly. Not directly myself, but I certainly remember being in lobbies when they were just talking about bringing in the Kronos patch that brought in things like private matches and stuff like that. And there was
oh,
just
you didn't have private lobbies,
there were no private lobbies, no.
right? You just go into a pub and then you'd have to mix with the people that are playing.
Yeah. And that made a huge difference. Once you brought in privates, people could hide themselves away in, then the pub queue got worse, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened from my point of view. Once you have privates, then the people that are nice to play with, they all have their private sessions. And then the percentage of people that are nice to play with in pubs goes down relative.
Of course,
So
yeah,
it just
yeah. But
nosedives.
then if you didn't have privates, then it'll be shit. 'Cause, we need them to be able to do all the tournaments and all the cool things that we do.
Yeah, no, of course.
So,
They're completely necessary. That's just a
but there is
byproduct.
a byproduct, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the byproduct of that is, which is one of the reasons they never wanted to introduce like a competitive queue, because it would further split down the population that are searching, and it would make the non-competitive queue like even worse.
But why is that so from my point of view, when Rad in those early days of development and they're building out this product, they're growing the player base. From my point of view, if I was in charge, I would say, okay, look at Rocket League. Let's copy everything they're doing. They've got like a training arena. We need a training arena. Okay, they have a separate queue for this. We do a separate queue. That's what I would have done. I'm surprised they would do anything other than that.
Yeah, I didn't know if they, I think every Echo player will agree that the game never got maybe the full amount of love that it deserved. There's tons of things they could have done, you know, tons
Well,
and
despite
tons and
that,
tons of things.
I stand by what I just said, but it is a very polished game, though. At the end of the day, it is pretty tight knit considering it's VR as well.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot for someone to come up with something that's gonna touch this, and be such a cornerstone of the VR experience. Where however you look at it, Echo is going to have made its impact in gaming history. Really, it's the first multiplayer esports type event like this. There's so much video footage of like the old ESL tournaments and whatnot that will be archived away and be brought up in years and years to come. Of some of the very first forays into this kind of space and world.
Okay, that leads to my next question because I'm curious about what was your progression from early beta days, playing pubs with the same 100 players, and then were you involved? Were you at the LAN events yourself?
The ESL lands. So Quackheads, my team, we
Yep.
formed actually like the very first VRL season, and we
Right.
didn't qualify for any of the ESL lands.
By the way, come forward a little bit just so you're
Come
in
forward
shot.
over
Yeah, that's it.
here.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so we didn't qualify for any of the lands. And then the first one happened. I can't remember. It was like an invitational, maybe Hamburg, something like that. I remember watching it online, thinking, "This is so cool!" Like, so these are the people I've been playing with, and
And you knew them. You recognized them all, right?
Well, you're just like, yeah, here's the names that we know and we've been playing this game with. So then when they did the big thing in Poland, spectators were allowed to go kind of over if you paid your own way. So yeah, I just kind of paid my way over and went and hung out. That was like my first experience of yeah, kind of that kind of thing, VR meetups and
Yeah.
recognizing voices before you know faces and walking around
Yeah,
going
that's
like,
a weird, always a
I
weird
know that
experience.
voice. I know that voice. Yeah, super strange. And the whole thing was a bit of a shit show. Like as far as the actual event itself ran, just tech problems left, right, and center. But the social experience and just that thing happening, existing was super cool. Definitely gave me the inspiration that I was watching it all go wrong, thinking, how hard can it be? Like doing events just generally, I was like, oh, like they could have thought this through a little bit more in the pre-planning. So
What was this? Is this like logistical things going wrong, or is it technical things to do with the equipment that perhaps the
there
people managing it?
it was technical
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
They had CV1s which had all the reflective issues with the the sensors, had
Yeah.
loads of them in a close space, and it was in a conference hall, so there was all this other stuff going on as well. And they obviously hadn't done
A
a
recce.
test run a couple of days before while they were setting up or anything. They just kind of
Mm.
yeah. And it's one of the reasons, again, like doing events like this is so much easier once you've got kind of quests. There's less to go
Mm.
wrong. So, as soon as I could see there was an opportunity, I was like, let's do that. Let's do
So
that because,
Hamburg, you watched from afar. You
yeah.
weren't there for Hamburg, but you were at the next one.
I think I can't remember now whether Poland was the next one or the third one because I think they did a Leicester thing as well.
Yes,
So it
I
might have
know
gone
about this.
Hamburg, Leicester, Poland, but don't count me on that. Some other people
Right.
might remember a little bit better than I do the exact chronology of it.
Meanwhile, were there events in the US as well?
The US were holding. They did the ones at Oculus Connect, if I remember. They did a big one at OC 5.
Five, I believe.
Yeah. And then I think there'd been another invitational, like informal thing. But back then, Oculus were just throwing money at this game. So,
Yeah.
like, the NA players were actually getting like flown over here to play
Mm.
in Leicester, for example.
Mm.
So it wasn't like we had an EU one and an NA
But
one
were
where you
they
could
flying
just.
out like a loads of people, like a busload, or was it like
It
free?
was like
The top team.
top 3 teams, I think it was something like
Oh,
that.
that's a
Top
fair
three or
few then.
4 teams, something like that.
Yeah.
Don't remember it was 3v3 back then, so there was
Yeah.
a few less people to fly around, but
Yeah, but
they
still,
were they were
if
just
that's like
putting
a
the money
grand
into it,
per person.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy money. Like I looked into just how much it would cost to budget something like that. You're going to need tens of thousands of pounds to be able to pay people's flights to go to almost to anywhere. So yeah, there were big bucks flying around back then. In at some point that money was always going to dry up.
Were you aware of, or you just saw it from afar? Were you aware of where that money was coming from? Because I imagine it's mostly Oculus, but it must have come from Intel, from ESL themselves. There must have been other places it was coming from, right? Other people benefiting from the noise and the marketing of it.
I know Intel sponsored the first one, first season, the VRL, I think it was. I think it was VRL, and the second one was VRCL, if I remember.
Yeah.
VR League, then VR Challenger League. And Intel definitely funded the first one. I think they might have dipped by the second one, and then it was just on Oculus money. I mean, ESL weren't putting money into it. They were kind of being paid, as far as I'm aware, anyway.
Oh,
They were
right.
they were being paid to to
Interesting.
facilitate running this league thing.
Mm.
So I mean, it was a big marketing gimmick. It was just, hey, look at this thing. Like, we've got these headsets. Let's get loads of cool video footage. We can use this to sell our products. Echo Arena was on the boxes and all the rest of it.
Mm.
It was just using the players. We're just lucky to be there early. and be used as marketing tools, really. You know, we're being paid weekly in the leagues, you know, if we finish in the top 6 or 8 or something like that. And there weren't even that many teams back then, you know. When they were throwing money at Echo Combat, I was getting paid to finish in last place. We just turn up each week. There weren't enough teams. So we just turn up each week, lose the matches, and walk away with like $25 or something. You know, just do that every week. So there was just a lot of money being thrown around back then. Just, you know, marketing, really.
Do you see, looking back at it now, do you see any way where that could have continued for at least a couple more years? Or do you think it just had its moment and it made sense for that marketing money to change course?
I think it was. I don't think you would have seen the same level of investment. I think it might have been possible for ESL to continue facilitating the leagues in some way, if maybe communication had been a little bit better in the way that some things were being run and managed. But
You think it was just too early? You think that it just didn't
yeah,
get the bites they wanted it to?
I mean, it's just not sustainable, right? You've been involved in VRML for quite a while now. You've done your fair share of casting. You know, like, how many videos do you get
You mean
generally that
views?
are gonna, you know, how many videos are gonna hit the 10,000 views?
It's no, not really 10,000 views. Like 5,000 you're looking at for a VRML final.
For
Like
a final, yeah.
10,000, yeah, maybe if they really pushed it. But
And unless you're going to be hitting significantly higher than those numbers, there's
yeah,
no value in a sponsor, right? Why am I going to give you I can spend that 10 grand in far better ways to advertise my business or my product. It's just not a really an enticing proposition that we had on the table, really, I think, to sustain that level of interest on a purely business kind of level.
it's kind of a bummer, isn't it? You'd think that a
Yeah.
video of this, you'd put it up on TikTok and it would just explode. You'd assume the average person that's kind of vaguely heard of what an Oculus is would see that and be like, that's so cool. What? £300? I want that.
I think the one thing that NEPA, for all they did wrong, I think one of the things they did right was try and approach it in the fact that this can be a spectator sport. And you can get people who have got no idea about VR, don't really care about, you know, any of that. It's just a cool game, a good spectator sport that you can get people involved with. Cheer on the red team, cheer on the blue team. You know, and I think that's where some of the magic kind of lied in.
Or you,
Yeah.
oh, you looked off in the distance like you saw something.
Yeah, no, I was I was just thinking to myself, like, again, kind of all this arena really is just like a few blocks and a whole ton of empty space, right? And it's that spectator sport element that could have drawn people in and found money pots outside. You don't need lots of bells and lots of whistles. You make the you make the action, the entertainment, in a way that it could appeal to anyone. Only people are going to watch CS:GO if you play CS:GO.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone can watch a good game of Echo Arena and quite get into it.
What do you think about, so speaking about spectators, what do you think about Vertex and what they're building?
It's kind of incredible. I remember when Jersey was kind of talking about some of this, like talk about an arena thing, good number of years ago, and then went quiet, and then a few years later, then just popped up with this, and I was like, that's very, very cool. I think there's a huge space going to be in future, at least for watching your favorite. And it's not just games, right? It could be anything. I think big screen and other apps have tried this kind of thing as well, where you can socially get together and consume some kind of content, be that a sports game or, you know, a movie, whatever it might be. I think what Vertex are gonna do quite well with is trying to recapture that atmosphere that you get when you're like at a venue of some sort. Have you watched those like UFC VR videos?
You mean when they put a 360 camera in the corner?
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah,
can watch that in VR. Yeah, yeah, I've
yeah,
seen
and
it.
it's kind of a little bit like, it's
Yeah,
kind of. Whereas if you think about what Vertex are doing, you take that exact same thing and
yeah.
they put that fight in the middle, but they're surrounded by a bunch of other people. Like, how much more engaging immediately does that make that
So
experience?
there's a company that was doing this. I actually applied for a job there, and I can't remember. Oh, that's annoying me. I can't remember what they were called. They bought Napster, so
Oh
they
wow.
had loads of money, and I can't remember what the name of the company was. But that's what they were doing.
Hmm.
They were, yeah, that was their product. So they would have live events, music events, sports events, and they would stream it to people. This was Oculus Go time. They would
Hmm.
stream it to people on their Oculus Go, and they could watch it. That was their business model, and then they since pivoted to something else. But during the interview, I was asking about volumetric data. So there's people that record films like CGI,
Hmm.
and they're using the 3D animation. So a whole scene will happen, and then they'll just stick in, like we have a virtual camera now. They'll stick
I
virtual
keep forgetting
cameras to
about
record the
that.
event. So I'm hoping, and I need to read into it more. Like, is that technology close enough where Vertex can? Right now, they're recording. If they so right now, what they're doing definitely works. They can record a game of, well, not anymore, but Echo. They can
Yeah,
record a game of CS:GO, a Rocket League, something like that, and then get us in VR observing it. Amazing. But the next level, in my opinion, is recording a Premier League match or a UFC
absolutely.
fight,
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
boxing match.
absolutely.
If
100%.
they could live stream 3D volumetric data,
Yep.
I think that's like revolutionary.
That would be so cool. And again, just plays into that the idea of the socialness, right? Because that's what makes VR different. That's what makes this game cool. That's what makes just that's the reason to put on a headset rather than just put on a microphone and your headphones and
Yeah,
sit in your room with your controller, because you get this kind of like body language, and you
yeah.
can you actually feel like you're with somebody, like actually with them. And you take that feeling, multiply it by 100 people who are all into the same thing, you start to create the same kind of magic that occurs, which is the reason I put on events in the first place, right? Exactly that feeling, and I think you can create that in VR. I was chatting to a guy, I forget what it's called, but he's been building a VR club basically, and he's been
Okay,
speaking to people that run club nights and free parties
okay.
and people like that, and getting them to host nights in this VR
VR
space.
chat or a different
No,
app?
no, no. They built their own thing. Hang on, I don't know what it was called. His name's Lewis Hackman. I don't want to spend all my day. This is the problem with all these Discord servers, right? I was telling you about. I've started with no Discord, and now I've just got too many to find the
Mm,
name of this thing. But it's really cool that the fact that they're trying to do. There's a ton of people out there again that are trying things. And I think that's what's most exciting to me about virtual reality in general
yep.
is those early days. It reminds me of when I was like a kid and I got the internet for the first time,
Mm,
and it was like the Wild West, and people were still
mm,
learning how to use the thing and what you could build on top of it. And there was just all this crazy stuff that was happening so quickly as well. And
mm.
that's kind of again what early VR has been really interesting about, just watching people find the boundaries and come up with new ideas, and you know these crazy genius coders that just build things that feel like real life out of code on a screen. It's pretty cool.
I think it's a beautiful moment where we are. Everyone's doom and gloom generally about it, well, particularly about Echo being shut down. But I feel like we very much are still in that Wild West. We've got a bedroom developer who built a game where you're a monkey and you crawl around and you play tag, and it's like massively outsold whole AAA studio budget studios. Like what?
Well done, Lemming. Good on him.
But how much, like, that one person did that, which
Yeah,
means that that can be
yeah.
done 10 more times at least really well. and then 100
It's
more times after that.
Well, it's like the old days of like Sinclair and Amstrad and all those early personal computers, Commodore
Yeah,
64, which was like my first ever computer when I was a kid. Like load bloody games from a tape,
yeah,
wait half an hour for the damn thing to load. And but some of those games I learned in later life were just made by like 14-year-olds at home in their bedrooms, and
yeah.
they changed the face of gaming as we know it. And we're just seeing the same thing in a new medium. It's just you never really get to understand that without the perspective of time and being able to like look back. Those people at the time never felt like they were really all that significant or were involved in doing all that much more than just making a game in their bedroom. It's
Mm.
only 20, 30 years later that people look back and say, hey, without that we wouldn't have had this or this.
It's true. It's true. And then some of them become rock stars, right? You've got Gabe Newell at Valve, John Carmack,
Yep.
known for like founding first person shooters. Yeah,
Yeah, and
I
they were
think
just kids learning stuff, right?
maybe it was you that said it to me, or someone said it to me recently. Like the people we're among now in this Echo community, in the VR community in general,
Yeah,
they are like, you know,
they
they
are.
are going to
Yeah,
be looked
that's
back as
exactly
like,
what
oh
I
wow,
meant.
yeah, that
That's
person built
exactly
that.
what I meant. Like these the people that you meet now, the names that give it 5, 10 years time.
Yeah.
If people are still in contact with each other, I think you'll be absolutely amazed at the output that comes from this community. I mean, God, just look at all the tools that are built on top of on top of this game.
You're talking about Spark tools.
Yeah, things like Spark tools, the replay viewers. Like there's
Yep.
just tons of things over the years that have just been little things people have all built on. But it's just the ingenuity of people is never to be underestimated, I don't think. And again, going back to like the really early 2017, just hit the button and see who you end up meeting days.
Yeah.
Like I say, most of those people were like developers or someone interesting, and they've taken these
Yeah.
experiences they've had in this space that they enjoyed, and they're going to take that out into the wider world, and who knows what they'll make. But I bet some of it will be really cool. Some of it will be junk, but some of it will be really cool.
So let's go back to the timeline. So ESL days, you said you were at Leicester. You went to that event,
Um,
or no? You
went
went to Poland.
to the I went to the Poland one on ESL days. Yeah, Leicester no, Hamburg no. I went to the second Leicester one.
Yeah.
They did one a little bit later, but that was VRML. I think that was when I think it was I think it was VRML.
So, well, as that died down and we entered a different era where it was all community focused and VRML started to shine, and now we're having season after season after season. What was there any moments where you were thinking, oh, okay, this isn't quite ready to be what I thought it was? Did you think about just picking up a different hobby? Or like
I
what made
mean,
you stick with it at that time?
I mean, I found a bunch of people quite early on that I just really clicked with, and we all
Mm,
got on really well. And there's probably a group of maybe like 15, 20 of us that have been playing almost nightly for
mm.
coming up to 6 years now. Um, and and yeah, you build those connections with people, and that definitely brings you back on kind of a just keep in the game kind of level. And then there's something that comes with competitive play that you don't get from just casual play with your friends. There's like that intensity and that energy that you get from competitive play that you know you don't get that thirst quenched in the same way just playing with your friends. So that's what kept me going on the competitive side.
And you kept both because in your Duckman server, you have your casual group that play on a Friday night, Sunday night.
Yeah.
And then you have you have the team that's been around since preseason.
Since VRL season 1, ESL, it's 2017. Yeah, same.
And
Me and Middleman have been on the same, apart from one season when I took a break and he joined another team, but we've been on the same team, yeah, since it was possible to play competitive Echo.
Wow. And
Yeah,
so I thought Irony Man and Flash, they were long
we've had,
time players, right?
yeah. So it was initially me, Middleman, and a guy called DJ Esco.
Okay.
DJ Esco only played for about 3 weeks or so. He's actually a really good music producer and is doing loads of really
DJ.
good stuff with Vinyl Reality, the DJ.
Yes. Okay.
He does loads of really cool stuff with those guys these days.
Right.
So he's actually the guy who designed Duckman. Yeah, the very first Duckman
Yeah.
was done by DJ Esco, and then Esco left and Tectic joined us. That
Okay.
was again right back in the VRL first season,
Yep.
and then Tectic moved to a farm and had like
Amazing.
200 odd playing. And we tried to play with him again for a while, and it just really wasn't working. So then we had a rotation, I guess, for a while of different people who have kind of come and gone. But it's pretty much been me and Middle, and then other people over the years.
Nice. So did that change at all when the pandemic came around? Or was it pretty much business as usual in terms of like your lifestyle, working and then playing games in the evening?
Um, I mean, that didn't change so much with the pandemic. That's kind of, I was doing that anyway. But
Yeah.
the pandemic gave me, I mean, okay, it might get a little bit, I guess this might get a little bit heavy, but I guess it's important to part of my story with this. So around 2018, I had a little girl. My first little girl, Eliza, was born. And then maybe about a month, it was 5 weeks later, she had an accident and then ended up in intensive care. And I was there in intensive care. Like, it took about 6 months recovery for her to be able to come home. It was about a month in intensive care where I was driving backwards and forwards between Bournemouth and Southampton. And when I came home, putting on the headset some nights, in how chaotic and strange and fucked up my life was right then, this felt so normal and constant and solid. And the people that I kind of met then, it gave me an opportunity to talk to people kind of, that I didn't know in the real world. And there was something really kind of comforting and good about that. And then when she got home, I thought to myself, how important Echo kind of had been in that whole situation. And we were doing a fundraiser for the department that saved my daughter's life. And I thought to myself, how much do I want to connect the outside world with my VR world? And I was like, no, I'm going to and I put the fundraiser up, and a whole bunch of the EU community just donated, like immediately, just money to this fundraiser. And it's going to loop back around to the pandemic. It's there, in that moment, I just kind of had such gratitude towards these random internet strangers that I'd met and built these relationships with. And it's a lot of the reason I wanted to always kind of try and give back to the EU community. And then when the pandemic came around, it just gave me utter flashbacks to that, but everybody was experiencing it. The fact that your lives are in turmoil, nothing's the same as it normally is. Everything's upside down and higgledy-piggledy, and you don't know if you're coming or you're going. But when you put on this headset and you come into this space and you're with these people, there's a sense of normality and consistency that I think is super important and really grounding. And I think a lot of people felt that through the pandemic. And I think this game's got a lot to answer for how much it's been able to help people through all kinds of different situations, because of the ability to be this kind of constant existing space. Yeah, got off a little bit.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So were you nervous about posting that fundraiser because you thought, well, these people don't know me. They don't really know me in real life. Why would they care?
Yeah. It was just like, it's just like, how much do you want to keep your online life and your real life separate, right? There's this innate
Yeah.
feeling to do that. Like I was always taught, internet strangers you don't want to like do that. But I found by when I did open up about say all the stuff that came back was just so fulfilling. I guess not fulfilling is the wrong word, but kind of like wholesome. It was like, oh look, can there's really good people here. So I'm like, yeah, if I can do anything to kind of give back to all these really good people, I'm gonna do it. Which is why I've always kind of tried to stay involved in anything kind of community based with Echo Arena and kind of give back where I can.
I've seen this in with US communities as well. At least two different like fundraisers. I've seen someone's in a bit of a shit situation in real life. Someone posts a fundraiser about it, and then everyone just immediately jumps on it. Like how people jumped on the fight for Echo, the petition, and the flyover. People jump on people's personal things as well. Someone had a really close family member with expensive health bills in the US, and then immediately like loads of people, like 100 people, will jump on it, and
yeah, it's great. And I don't think a lot of people understand. Like a lot of people misunderstand the gaming space in general. I think, and are quite quick and easy to kind of off-right the connections people make there. It's like, oh, it's the amount of times I've heard, oh, yeah, but it's just a game, right? Just play another game. You're just shutting down a server. It's just, and it's hard to convey to people who haven't really had any of those experiences why it is more than just, oh, the game's going to be turned off. Because yeah, you do get those situations, right, where it's like, well, you can see here quite plainly that this is a bunch of humans that kind of in one way or another actually do care about each other in one way or a fashion, even if that is telling them to kill themselves and punching them in the face in an arena. I've seen people who have been so toxic and horrible in the arena to people, and then as soon as some kind of like outside thing happens, you see a whole different side to people. I think sometimes at first glance these spaces can seem quite hostile, especially to outsiders who haven't experienced it before, but if you scratch under the surface, there's usually a whole bunch of people that have connected over similar things.
So let's go back to our timeline. So pandemic. What happened after that? So 2020, 2021, we're in and out of lockdown. And then, so the world opens up in 2022, and you go, hey, here's an opportunity. EU hasn't had a LAN since Poland. Let's set one up. So what was the thinking behind that? Was there a trigger that like made you do it, or was it just something you were like, whenever it's possible, I'm going to set this up?
I've been thinking about it for a while. Like I said, since I was at the Poland one and the one in, like the second one in Leicester, and I was looking and going, well, this could be done better. But I was always scared of the technical side of it. I was like, the reason it's gone wrong is all these technicals, and you might be able to do certain things better, but it's still a massive risk factor of it all fucking up. And the one thing I didn't want to do is put something on and either have to cancel it for the reasons we spoke about earlier, or for it all to go tits up, and then no one's gonna trust you to do one again, are they? Hey, come fly over for this LAN, and it's gonna be shit.
What were the technical things you were worried about? And I'm asking because it's kind of a loaded question, because myself, Savage Large, a couple other people as well, we were trying to plan one as well before we heard that you were setting yours up. We were like, hey, there's a space here. Like, people want an event. We can pull this off. We can do this. And what I got nervous about was the connectivity, making sure that we've got as low ping as possible.
Yeah, that's like definitely one element of it. I mean, the initial thing that put me off was just people being like quite heavily on CB1 and Rift S.
Yeah.
And there was just the amount of things that can go wrong with that technically is quite large, and then what you end up with is a situation where you get all these massive time delays. Everyone's waiting around for ages. No one can play all the games. You can't finish the tournament. It's just a mess. Yeah, you don't want to end up in that situation. So the moment I started seeing more and more players go over to Quest 2, I thought, right, okay, now might be the time to make that entry I've been waiting for the last like 3 years or however long it's been to do. And yeah, of course. So I start mentioning it and drop the hint, and then like I get messages from like you and Savage and some others, and like, oh, we were gonna do this. I'm like, oh, sorry guys. But I've been thinking about this for ages, and I really think I was like, I'm pretty well placed to do this, right? I've been in the community. The other thing is, going back to what I said earlier about you asking people to trust you with a lot. You're asking people to fly and spend thousands of pounds to trust that you're going to be able to do this. I didn't think it was going to be possible for anyone else who had not for anyone who hadn't been in the game and the community for as long as I had to pull that off with that level of trust. I think there would have been this question mark over, well, they've only been around a little while. Do they, I think it needed that that there to just give that extra level of trust. I was like, I'm just well placed to do this. I've got the career experience in planning them. I've been to a few. I know what it entails, and I've got the community position that people might trust me to do it. And all those things kind of together is kind of what made me think, right, now fuck it, I'm just gonna let's do it. Let's make it happen.
I think it helps that you're in the UK as well, where probably 70%, would you say, the EU player base is English?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
So it does make that a little bit easier.
I mean, it would be silly to do anywhere else.
Yeah, but then that's where the trust comes in for our EU friends, right?
Yeah,
people further out, they've got to like pay for their flights and things like this.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements that come into play to make a decision like that, really. But I just knew that I knew that I had a venue at that hotel, right?
Yeah.
And I knew there was this massive space that could maybe pull something off. And then I started getting into the nightmares because they didn't have the amount of internet that I'd been promised that they'd had. So I'd kind of got a bit carried away with it and just put out hey, would anyone be interested in a LAN? And within about 24 hours, that had been twisted into Gobs doing a LAN. And I was like, I kind of got to do it now. So,
what was the solution with the internet in the end? Was it wasn't the hotel Wi-Fi, right? Wasn't there a different solution?
No, there was the solution was to hire. I paid the guy who runs the hotel's network to come down, and then convinced him to turn off all the internet access to the hotel rooms across the entire building and just have us downstairs in the basement with internet access. And I just kind of paid him a lump sum that he would get. I was like, look, I'm going to pay you more than it's going to be worth your while to come down for the weekend. I think I paid him like 600 quid, and he had to be there for like a day and a half. It's like it's good money. No one should be complaining about that as a day rate. But I said to him, what you're going to have to do is turn around to the hotel owner and just be like, nah, because they were so not technical. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. The only person they would have phoned is this guy. That's their only IT contact. So I basically just paid him to make sure that we only had internet. And that's why we weren't allowed back to the hotel again. One of a couple of different reasons, but one of the main reasons was she was just like, we can't have the guests with no internet. I was like, well, upgrade your internet. She says, well, we don't want to pay any more to upgrade our internet.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this isn't going to work then, is it? Because I can't pull that same blag again. It wasn't going to happen. So, but yeah, that was the solution. Blackmail the internet guy.
That's hilarious. Okay, so what other takeaways did you have from like having done the event? What else were you nervous about, and what went surprisingly well?
Um, I'm always worried about timing and stage timing. That's kind of whether it's a VR event or whether I'm running a festival. Like the last thing you need is runovers, because then your headline is like in a band situation, which is what I was, more used to dealing with.
Yeah.
If you let your bands earlier in the day all play over by 5 minutes, and they're like, "Oh, just one more song." Like, all right, yeah, it's just one more song. Go on then. All those little 5 minutes mean the headliner's got half an hour cut off their set, and that's who people are paid to come and see. Yeah. So that was kind of once I knew I'd gotten over the internet thing and we were okay for that. My only other main worry really was once we sold the tickets and people were coming. That's always a worry. But once we gotten over that, it was just like, can we keep it all the time? Are people going to like keep their headsets charged? Are they going to turn up at the mats when they're supposed to? Is someone just going to have vanished off to eat a burger when it's time for them to play?
Did we have issues like that? I thought most people were in the room when they needed to be, right?
Yeah, we ran
Surprisingly.
we ran really well to time. Yeah, it was fine, absolutely fine. And again, it was just you just make sure everyone's prepared, right? You just mentioned it a million times before. I bet people were just sick and tired of me saying like, make sure you've got your battery packs, double charge them, use the time when you're away not charging. But and communication, like all the casting team and stuff are just so good. Like we've got like an insanely good stream team. Like we're really fucking lucky.
Yeah, shout out to Swift. Swift is insane.
Swift is insanely talented. I don't know what he's going to go on to do. We're talking about what we were saying about people going on to do cool things after Echo. Swift as a broadcast manager, or whatever the title that you give, production manager, technically, I guess, broadcast production. Insanely good, very, very talented. And again, like the other casters who are there, like, Retep and Woodsy, Hex, and like, you're going to be there casting this year as well, right?
Yeah.
Not just casting, but then helping the event run on. Like Lockie helps Lowe's doing all the mic overs, making sure that people are aware that they've got to get over to the mat on time. And it takes that team, is being able to, like, as an event organizer, if you know you've got a good team around you, the stress is like minimal, because you've done all the work beforehand. You put the right people in the right places, and if you know they're good at their jobs, that's like 99% of the stress gone, really. And if I learn anything from LAN 1, it's that we're really fortunate to have like a wealth of really good broadcast and casting talent in the EU. And that's what I took away from it. I was like, these people are just great. And going forward, I think if we could bring that team to almost any situation, we'd be able to run an event, be it a VR LAN or a traditional LAN event, or anything where you really needed to use these transferable skills. I think we've got a team that would be able to pull almost anything off.
Are you doing anything differently in terms of media this time? So recording the event, streaming it. Have you? I don't know. Have you thought about it at all?
In what regard? What do you mean?
So, well, I'm thinking there's massive opportunity here for milking the event for content and putting it up. So after the event last year, we had a nice video, and that went up and that got shared around, that got some nice views. But how about, and I'm really just thinking out loud, but is there other ways where we could like really milk content out of it? Perhaps encourage attendees to record things, have some kind of competition to submit a best clip IRL.
Well, there is already a new photos and video channel on the Discord that is created but hidden right now, ready to go live as people start traveling, to encourage people to do exactly that. We did have a last year community Google Drive folder as well, that people could upload all their own photos into it, as well as like a professional photographer that came down. The guy that's capturing all the player cameras, he's really good. He's going to have an extra camera as well that he's going to be roaming around and doing some filming on.
Nice.
Just trying, because what we're going to do with this one, the plan's changed. The initial plan was make this event as good as it can be and gear it up so that we've got all the footage and a product that we can then take to this investor that was willing to put money in to upscale it next year and bring some other games on in a larger venue and really start to build it out like that. Echo dying has changed, obviously, that. So it's going to be far more about kind of just making sure we capture enough of the atmosphere and the memories of the thing, so that in in time to come, there's a good trove and archive of stuff there that people can, and we'll do the same this year. We'll put it all in a Google folder, and people can download that and use it as they will, and make some content out of it if they like. But I think by and large, sometimes when you look back on like a video from like 10 years ago of something cool, and you're just like, oh, that was like some old music video, on a DVD. Do you remember DVDs? They were like round things that you put in a tray, and the tray would eat the disc.
No.
And then pictures would come up on the TV. Right?
3D pictures, right?
Crazy. 3D pictures come up on the TV. Like, it almost looked like real footage. And you'd see like all these bands playing in old venues that don't exist anymore, and stuff that just historically was quite cool, but it's just now only exists as a treasure trove of digital memories. And that's kind of what we'll try and do, make some kind of like time capsule, I guess.
Nice. Oh, I had a question. It's got. So were you? Because at one point you were going to have Onward at the event as well, very early on. Have you had conversations with? Well, the first one that comes to mind is Resolution Games. They've got Ultimex and Blaston. Have you had any interest from other studios to get their games into events like this?
Yeah. So the Ultimate guys spoke to me. They were asking me about doing something. And I, at the time they were quite a new game, and we were just I only really would have had space just about to fit Onward in there. It was like there's a second room in the 1865 that we're not using, that would have just about managed to fit, and it would have been a bit tight, which is why we didn't do it in the end. That combined with the player base kind of dying off somewhat, or certainly not having the interest that we had from the Echo community. Yeah, I think there's a ton of games out there that would suit having a LAN, and I'm sure the players of every game would like to have a LAN. It just comes down to funding, right? Like, the only reason I could afford to take the gamble to put this on, because the event's costing me over £10,000 to put on, just out of my own money. I don't have £10,000 in my bank account, so when you roll the dice, it's just like you're playing with, how much debt am I going to end up with at the end of this? Am I going to like clear it and break even and then it's all good? Or am I going to end up like in debt from putting this thing on? And that's not unique to this. This is every event that you do, really. That's always the gamble. Every gig's a gamble, as we say. And it's almost part of the fun. Kind of the gambling keeps you kind of in the events game somewhat a little bit, because it gets a little bit exciting sometimes. But there's no other game out there currently that has got the player base to community fund a LAN, which is what we have basically done. Everyone's ticket money has funded the event, right? Like, the only way another VR game gets a LAN currently is if they find a sponsor, back to Intel, back to those old, and then you've got to find someone who's willing to throw money at a game that, again, will be like only gets a few thousand views on a video if they want. The value's not there, and you're right back to that situation that we had before the community LANs. And the community LANs were only possible because of the size of this game's community. So until I see another game that's kind of regularly stumping up numbers of people in tournaments and is got a close knit enough community that they actually want to meet each other, I don't see that there's anything else that be able to validate having one.
So we're having this conversation now. So 3 weeks before the LAN, it's late March right now. The game was announced as shutting down over 2 months ago. No, a month and a half ago.
It was a month and a half ago. That's It's been a roller coaster of emotions in that
Where are
time.
you, like, looking back on that now a month and a half in? I mean, you're pretty busy because you've got LAN around the corner. Like, I bet when you come off here, you've got like loads of messages you need to reply to and stuff. But
Hang on, I'm just
what? No
plugging my
rush.
headset in. One sec.
We'll take a intermission. My left controller broke. Not broke. Ran out of power.
There we go. Yeah, that's the only problem with Quest's battery. That's the great
Yeah.
thing with CB1. You know, I prefer that. Yeah, carry on. 3 weeks away from LAN. We are.
Yeah, I was setting the scene for where we are right now, having this conversation. And to be fair, you're probably just real, like, what's the term? Like, in the trees. You're in the woods. Can't see the wood for the trees. So it's probably not the best time to ask you, but why not? Let's get a temperature check. How do you feel about, like, the immediate so after LAN? So there's months leading up to August, and then how do you feel about the next couple years or 3 years? I know it's a pretty big question.
Well, I mean, so it just, like I mentioned a minute ago, like the whole purpose of the LAN event itself has changed. Like it's almost becoming like a funeral for the Echo EU community, and it was supposed to, you know, it would just bring in all these. It's like a memorial, in the way that, just in the way people have been talking about it, like immediately overnight at that, when that announcement came, the approach people came and were talking about it, it just changed. So at the moment, my main focus is just like, let's just make this thing as good as it possibly can be. I want to make sure that everyone just creates some really good lasting memories, and then once we get through the LAN event, I think it's going to hit me even more that all of this is going to be gone in another 3 months, or however long. So it's another 3 March, April, May, June. Got 4 months, right? 4 months after the LAN. So I'm just going to play as much as I possibly can in that time period, and enjoy what I can, and see what comes next, what comes after August. Right? It's almost as soon as it happened, I was like, right, we can't let this happen. How do we stop it? Right? And like, how can we do that? And then join like the Fight for Echo campaign, and I like a good protest anyway. Like, even if it's like a fight that's not going to end up winning, I'm all about, like, if it's a good cause, you know, hey, let's do it. Let's get those placards. Let's go to the barricades. Let's stick it to the man. Maybe throw a Molotov cocktail through. No, maybe not. But you know, we'll do what we can to make a statement, make it known that it's unacceptable to treat people and treat good communities in this way. But inevitably it's going to go, right? There's nothing like, even flying a banner across Meta HQ is never really going to change anything. I think it just sends a strong message. When the game goes, we're all somewhat be looking around for the next thing. I know we've got like my little community of friends, the Duckman server people, as you were saying earlier. You know, we're all going to want to still hang out and chat and play. So I'm sure we'll be looking for something different. The EU Teams server, which again, you know, that's been the central hub really, online for the EU community with this game, for years now. And I think, again, you're going to see just all these people who are kind of doing what we were doing before Echo appeared, just bouncing from game to game, trying different things until something sticks. And you know, be that a copycat of Echo, or another, or you know, whatever David and Lemming are cooking up in their Willy Wonka factory of dreams. You know, we'll see, and we'll see what comes out of it. And as much as I'm, you know, kind of sad to see all of this beautiful space just turn to digital dust, I'm also kind of a little bit thankful that we got to enjoy it all in the first place. And there's something kind of unique about being involved and part of something from the very beginning to the very end. And I've never done that before with a game, I don't think. I can't remember one I played from like day one to shutdown. And certainly not one I played from day one to shutdown and then gotten so involved in the community and everything else in between. Like that's not something that's ever happened before. Maybe, quite likely, maybe never quite happened again. Certainly not in the same way, I don't imagine. I think we kind of experienced a one-off there in those early days. So yeah, I'm just kind of thankful and grateful of being in the right place at the right time, and meeting people and having experiences that have definitely fundamentally like changed my life in various small different ways.
Could you give an example?
Well, like everything I mentioned before, that happened with my daughter, and then being in here, just having a constant space that you can meet people. And so, like, I remember back then, I would load into the lobby, and there was this American guy who'd overheard us talking about me chatting with, it was Irony or someone, about one of my daughter's like medical conditions. And this guy comes over out of nowhere. Oh, excuse me, I hope you don't mind me interrupting. And he was a bloody neurosurgeon.
Oh,
right?
wow.
And he'd heard us chatting away, heard a couple of terms that he recognised. And he came over, and every time I saw him in a game, every time I'd look, first thing like, Gobshite, how's your daughter? And it was like having someone on hand who had all that medical experience. You could just tap in and just be like, hey, mate. Things like that. Small interactions with people that lead on to bigger things. Like there's just been so many incidents in this game that I would declare in one way or another, either, if not life-changing, life-affirming.
Oh, that's deep. Oh. Okay. I have another question that I'd like to ask people.
Go for it.
And I try and cater it to the person depending on the conversation we've had up until now. So I'll try and ask it. And I'm guessing how you're going to respond to it. So the question is, what are you curious about? What are you thinking about now? But I mean, because right now I imagine you're just thinking about this land. You're like, oh, I hope this works. I hope this lines up correctly. But beyond that, what else are you thinking about? And it doesn't have to be VR related at all. But what else are you seeing on the horizon you're thinking about, say, if you're just driving here and there?
What am I thinking about next? So, funny enough, I guess maybe game development stuff. So, I mean, I'm not a coder, right? I can't make games, not really. But I did make a game a number of years ago, which caused a little bit of a stir. It was called Boscombe the RPG, and I made it in RPG Maker, right? The game engine that simplifies making an RPG game down to eventing, and you don't need to know any code. Made your own pixel assets, and basically I made this game where you're in my hometown, and it's called Boscombe the RPG. That's the name of the area that I kind of like live in. And in the game, you get dropped off there with no money. You become a drug dealer. You buy you buy drugs from the dark web in the game, and you have to go around beating up like crackheads and teenage mums and counselors and so on and so forth. So I made this little game, and then I put it out to like the Bournemouth community, I guess, and said, hey, do you want to be in the game? Do you want to be in the game? Do you want to be in the game? I had hundreds of people send me photos and then like a little sentence of something. So I put them all in as NPCs in the game, scattered all over the place. Released the thing. And then someone from, how do you pronounce it? Kotaku magazine? Kotaku?
I don't know.
It's like some games review website. Kotaku, I think. They wrote an article about it called "How an RPG Desecrated My Hometown," and then they went on to like proper like hunt me down. They found out about my uncle, my uncle ran one of those like the head shops where they sell like bongs and papers and stuff like that, like a smoking accessory shop. so she found that out. She was, of course, he put a game about drugs. His uncle does this, and he's in a I'm in a
Blimey.
band, like I'm in a band that makes some pretty kind of like, childishly, vaguely offensive songs. The band's called Shit the band. And she found all of this out. Just made this massive hit piece, right? That just went viral and got me loads of downloads. Perfect. Exactly what I wanted. I was like, cool, let's make this game, make a bit of a stir. Loads of people downloaded it. But I just gave it away for free. Never really did anything with it. And for years, people have been asking me to make another one. So we've just started kind of, me and another guy have just started kind of putting together the very, very beginnings of Boscombe the RPG 2, which is probably not going to be an RPG, might not be set in Boscombe. But it's going to be about gentrification. And we're going to start like taking it to the mayors and the councillors and the greedy landlords. And it's going to be saving our town from gentrification. So that's where my mind's at next. Get the land out the way, and then start making this follow-up game.
Is it too much of a? Are you forcing it if you make that a VR title? Do you want to keep it 2D?
I really wanted to do a VR one, but I don't know how to make a game, right? I just did this first one on RPG Maker, and loads of people liked it. So I'm kind of coming at it from I either go back to RPG Maker, I know how to do that, and do something there, or I'm looking at maybe learning Unity and kind of getting into, but I'm certainly nowhere to a stage of making a VR game, you know what I mean? Like baby steps, never bite off more than you can chew, work within the boxes that you know how to work in, and learn from there. So yeah, I'll work out how to make an easy game first. Easy. Every game developer is listening to this now. If anyone's still listening at this point, however long we've been chatting shit, but if anyone's still listening, then any game devs will be like, yeah, easy game, that doesn't exist, and it's probably true. But I'm going to take some baby steps into game dev, and who knows, maybe I'll learn enough to build a VR game one day. I'd quite like to. I've got some good ideas. I'm more of an ideas person, though.
Yeah.
If you hadn't noticed, I'm big on the ideas.
So what about Middleman has Middleman Games. He makes his own little VR titles.
Middleman makes some great look. He made the Duckman game as well. That should never be forgotten. He made Duckman the game. Have you not?
I haven't, no.
Duckman the game. I'll send it to you. Right. It's great.
Yeah.
Like Flappy Bird, but it's got like Tutorial Bot. Do you remember Tutorial Bot? Was he in your? Yeah.
I know of him. I saw like YouTube videos, probably 5 years old now, where he would just go into lobbies and pretend to be an AI.
Fucking hilarious. Like, I miss that man. He was. Sometimes you just turn in a lobby, you'd hear the voice, you just sit back and watch. it was the best. Some of the best stuff that you see. I remember once he was like, Gobshite, I need some content. Can I chase you with the shark? And you need to run away pretending to swim, like you're scared of the shark. That was something that I remember doing that with him once, but I digress. His I pretend to be a tutorial bot videos, if no one's ever seen, absolutely legendary. They're so good.
Yeah, well,
but he did all the voices for the Duckman game for Middleman.
Right. So does Middleman know about your ideas for the Boscombe Part 2? What's it called? Boscombe RPG.
We've not spoken about it hugely, but he is quite busy doing his kind of VR games that are actually probably gonna one of them will take off and do really well. His time's definitely better spent on that than my little protest video game about gentrification. I think he's well placed. He's making a really cool Tetris game at the moment.
I've seen it, the dial, right?
Yeah. It's just a really cool mechanic with dial. If anyone has, Middleman Games, go find his Discord, give him a like, get the beta, download it. It's cool, really simple, really intuitive. Just it reminds me of some of the games I used to get for Christmas sometimes. You get some kind of like handheld game and just sit there playing it for hours. And yeah, once he's got all the music and all the lights and the intensity of things, I can see that being really good. But yeah, I love seeing what Middleman comes up with. He actually made this 2D game called Zyode Shadow, which is like criminally underrated, really cool, like artwork, good puzzle platform kind of game. But yeah, I know he worked really hard on that, and that went out on Steam. I don't know, I don't know how many people have played it, but if they haven't, that's worth a look. Yeah, really good game.
Well, I think this is how it happens. I think a couple people brainstorm on a couple ideas that don't even have to be unique to VR, but benefit from the platform. Like Gorilla Tag doesn't work as a 2D game, right? It doesn't work.
I mean,
Echo
I
doesn't
don't know
work as a 2D
how.
game.
No, Echo does not work as a 2D game. Gorilla Tag, I'd prefer it as a 2D game. It would hurt my arms less.
But how would that work though? What, you just press the buttons?
Yeah, maybe you just have to flick the analog stick left and up, left and up, left and up, rotate them. I don't know. And just anything so in the next morning I don't wake up and my arms feel like they're falling off
It's
my
a
body.
workout. It's conditioning.
I remember the first time I played Gorilla Tag, I came away with it just cursing Lemming's name. Like, what have you done? What have you done?
Did you punch anything?
No. I've been really good
punched my
with
window.
punching stuff in VR. Oh no.
Like proper, like
single
yeah.
pane of glass or double?
It was double, and it didn't crack at all, but it felt like it did. It was a proper like, I punched it.
Modern.
Oh no, it was with I had CV1. I had Rift, so I
was
had
just
the
about to say
protector.
which controllers did you have? Because those CV1 controllers protect you from anything.
Yeah, I miss those.
Yeah, for sure. They were the best
Switch to
controllers.
Quest, and then you're getting cut up.
At least Quest 2 controllers are a bit better than Quest 1. That's what I'll say. But who knows what's coming, right? You know what's coming. Quest 3. When's it due?
What's that? What? Quest?
Quest
I
3?
don't know.
Quest 3?
Absolutely no idea. But just to circle back, I think
it was worth a try, right? It was worth a try. Try and get you on record. What's the release date, Mitch? What's the release date? Tell me.
I think I'm going to completely avoid that question. I think like it's not even one or two. I think there's hundreds of unique VR titles that are about to come out. I think there's going to be 5 to 10 like truly unique titles that are going to come out, and then there's going to be like spin-offs of those.
Yeah,
and it really is a matter of time. It can be tomorrow, and it can be in 2 years' time. But
well, people kind of forget that like it takes 3 to 5 years to make a good video game normally.
Yeah, but come on, like to polish it, yeah, sure. But to get a demo out where I can get a couple people into the game, or even just like single player at first, just to get the mechanics. I feel with VR, mechanics is number one, and then everything else like comes around that. Have you played Knock?
The archery game. Yeah, I had a go on that. It was okay.
Not sold.
It's
okay. It's not bad.
It's good for what it is. The problem is like, and I feel like Echo may have just tainted a lot for me because I compare everything.
Yeah, as you should. As when Half-Life Alyx came out, you should be comparing every shooter and every story mode to Half-Life Alyx. Of course you should. It's the bar that's been set.
You know, and I don't think there's many games that are out there for it yet. But let's say it does take 3 to 5 years to bring out something. I don't know, like this. We've got people who have been doing that now for the last 2-3 years. When did Quest 2 come out? Got to be 2 years ago.
Quest 2 came out, I want to say 2 years, yeah. It's been out for
2 years. So the people that were starting to develop stuff when the prototypes of this, that's only 3 years ago. There's probably
One sec, I need to grab a battery. I can see it under my desk.
No worries. We've got to be what even is the time? How long have we been chatting? Oh, this is going to be long.
That's fine. As long as you got time. Or have you got to be somewhere?
I keep getting invites from Spider.
Yeah, I'm getting invites as well. I'm guessing we can wrap it up if you want. There's nothing stopping a part 2 as well after LAN.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, it's up to you. Just if you've got any questions you particularly want to ask still.
Well, yeah. Okay, so we'll finish it off. We'll do the last question I ask everyone. The question is, chip or no chip?
Chip.
Chip. You'll have the chip put into your brain where you talk directly to the internet.
Oh, that chip. Yeah,
Yeah.
sign me up. Man, I've wanted that
Yeah?
since I was like 7 or 8 years old. I just don't trust like Elon Musk to be in charge of the chip company. I'll have
Why?
the chip, but I'm not too sure who should own the chip. Why don't I
Why?
trust
Why
what?
not Elon Musk?
Have you seen what he's done to Twitter? Do you want him to do that to a company that's in charge of your brain?
Do you feel the same way about Tesla and SpaceX?
I think that Elon Musk has. I've always kind of admired him as a as a futurologist, as someone who has just always been looking at the latest technology and wanting us to advance as quickly as possible. You
Yeah.
know, been spending a lot of time recently just doing lots of like work with AI and stuff like that. You know, I just love seeing the new stuff and how far it can push. For that, I respect the guy no end. You know, clearly has some out there ideas and he's willing to give it a go. But as a human being, I think he's perhaps slightly immoral and corrupt, and maybe not the kind of person I want in charge of anything that's directly inside my brain. You know, you don't give the big bad wolf access to your brain waves. I think, but I don't really know which company would be able to come out with. It's not necessarily limited to Elon Musk. It's just a big ask, right? Do I want to be able to just plug into some kind of matrix? Absolutely, sign me up. Sounds awesome. But there's always going to be that big question over like who's running the Oasis.
But it's always going to be a big bad wolf doing it because it's the big bad wolf that have the business mindset to build the business empire to be able to doing things like that.
Or do you think at some point, like open source technology stuff will waste the path?
I mean, sure,
almost
it's
in every-
idealistic, but if someone finds a way to take ownership of it and take control, people do.
Yeah,
I
and
think that's quite
I mean, nothing is
unavoidable.
ever foolproof because we've got humans, and humans inherently suck. You know, we're not very good at well a whole heap of things really. Certainly when it comes to making decisions, we tend to make bad ones on the whole as humanity. That's why we're careering towards complete climate collapse, and no one's really doing anything about it. Everyone's like, yeah, all right, that's happening at some point down the line. You know, humans are not really great at things, and it's always going to be a human, like you say, a bit the big bad wolf in charge of one of these companies, and that is the only thing that would make me think twice about getting the chip. But the idealistic nature of like, if there was a proper metaverse that was being run on some kind of like decentralized platform that you
Yeah.
could jack into,
Yeah.
sign me up. Where do I sign? Give me the NDA. Where's the NDA, Mitch? Is this a technology that you've been working on? Is this a thing? Where
I
do
don't
I
know what you're
sign?
talking about. I work at Tesco. I don't know anything.
Sign me up.
Right, one more question, just because I really want to ask it. Or should I save it? No, I'll ask it. When you were, you keep talking, well, a couple of times you referred to back in the 90s when you're growing up. So think back to like 94, 95, 96.
Yeah.
Was there a film or something that you saw and you were like, wow, the future's amazing. I can't wait for this, for VR, for a chip in my brain. Was there like a RoboCop or a Space Odyssey or
You
anything
know
like that?
what? Not really a movie, more like TV series. So combination of like the BBC did this Tomorrow's World thing. Don't know if you
Right.
remember that.
It rings a bell. I don't think I've ever
was
seen it, but now I really want to.
Tomorrow's World. It was like this kind of like mini-series documentary. It was on weekly. It was just like a news show, I guess. A news show,
Oh,
but they
okay.
would show like the Gadget Show now,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
a bit more like educational. You know, they liked it was quite kind of vanilla, I guess. It would look. I bet it looks really dated and really kind of
Yeah.
awkward now if you look back on it. But
Yeah.
they just showed all this crazy, future world technology, and I remember being like enamored by that. And the other half was a show called Games Master. Do you remember Games Master? It was like they had Patrick Moore, the old astronomer, and he was like a giant like hologram head. And they get people in playing like, I don't know, Sonic, like kids, the best Sonic player against, some random celebrity, and have like a 7-year-old kid beat a celebrity at like video games. And it was just like this big video game battle that again would kind of go into, this is happening in the future, that's happening in the future. And that I remember it was on one of those shows that they promised me virtual reality. Patrick Moore, me specifically, I was watching it, and Patrick Moore, the Games Master, the man who should know. I mean, he also plays the xylophone. You know that? Patrick Moore plays the xylophone. Weeble did a whole thing about it, like Weeble's stuff on YouTube. The guy who did Badger. He's got a thing. Yeah, he's got a thing. He's got a thing about Patrick Moore playing the xylophone. But I digress. I digress again. He said
I forgot
virtual reality is coming. Did you really?
I haven't seen that in about 10 years. Weeble, Badger, Snake.
Mushroom, it's a snake. Yeah, all those things are etched into my brain from like, I see things, I see them with my eyes, I see things, they're often disguised like handbags, carrots, cheese. Yeah, great. Weeble, genius, like again, early internet pioneer, those Wild West days, right? The Wild West days of the internet. But Patrick Moore promised me Gobshite, virtual reality in the 90s on TV. He said, virtual reality is coming soon, virtual reality gaming. And I remember looking at it thinking, great, I'm born at the right time. And I had to wait like 26 years to get it or something. I don't know how long it was.
Have you seen Ratatouille?
Ratatouille, he's the
little
Pixar
film.
Yeah, the little rat with in the kitchen.
Oh, you might not remember it then, because there's a scene at the end of that where the food critic comes in and he eats something and he's all like stern and old and grumpy and hard to impress. And then he eats something, takes him back to being 6 years old and his mum feeding him the same dish. And it's like a flashback, like, and I'm imagining you doing that the first time you saw the DK1, like the Kickstarter, being like, and then just going back to being however old you were, 9 years old. He's gone. He's left the room. All right, thank you. My name's MoneyMitch26. Gobshite. He's run out of power. That's how long we went for. That's got to be one of the longest interviews we've done. So long, I've lost my left hand. What an interview. So we're going to sign this off now. Take care. See you soon.